Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review of Youjo Senki, the saga of Tanya the Evil, I believe is the subtitle. Once again, don't know completely. Review. Yeah. But, episode 2 review. But either way, this was a whole different show from the first episode. It was better by leaps and bounds to the point where I'm like, what was the point of the first episode? Just to hate on the first episode a little bit at first. This episode, episode 2, was a perfect first episode. It was a perfect premiere introduction to a show. Why was this not episode 1? Why was episode 1 just some pointless action scenes? Like, it makes no sense. Episode 1 is completely useless to the plot after this because this gave us everything that episode 1 was missing. This gave us character development and their reasons for doing things. This gave us an actual start to the story and progression and plot and character arcs and all of that. This made sense. This was good. And it makes me look back on the not good that episode 1 was and think, why'd they even do that? Why didn't they just release this as the premiere? What if a bunch of people see that first episode and are like, wow, this isn't good, I'm not going to watch, and then they don't even check out episode 2 to see how good it is. Like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like the best thing in the world, but it was definitely very, very good. So I really am confused as to why, just really confused in general as to why episode 1 was what it was. But either way, talking about episode 2, we start out in Tokyo 2013, and I really like their city design. I'm a little bit spoiled after seeing Little Witch Academia, where I'm like, okay, everything looks so creative and has so much emotion and movement, and then I see this and I'm like, it's very, very beautiful, but then it is sort of still and lifeless. But that's most animation. This looked very, very good and was very, very detailed though, so compared to most animation, it was really good. We meet our main character, this hard-ass salaryman, who's very rules-heavy and believes that the rules will carry him to the top. Interesting character and a bit relatable, because he did fire a dude who needed a job to feed his kids or whatever, but then again, the dude had missed work like a shit ton, just skipped out and stuff. So, I mean, given that, he kind of had no choice. He had to do what he had to do. It was his job. And so the shitty dude murders him. Like, damn, you lose your job just... I don't know. Murder is not a proper response. That's a very shitty thing to do. So, yeah, I feel a lot, like, more sympathetic to the salaryman than to this other crappy dude that got fired. And then, one thing I loved with the animation... the whole sequence where they were frozen in time and like we even took and looked away to different parts of the city, that was beautiful. That looked really, really good. Then I love how God starts talking to the guy and the guy's like, oh, I don't believe in God. It's like when you have no sort of when you have no idea or evidence of the paranormal or anything existing, it's okay to be like, okay, yeah, there's no evidence for God existing. Okay, maybe I don't believe in that. But when you are face-to-face talking to it, about to die, I don't think that's the time where you should say, okay, I don't know what's going on, but it ain't real. I don't believe in this shit. You're just being X. I'm like, this is not the time, dude. This is not the time. Either way, oh, and we also see there's this really cool Overlord Easter egg in the background I saw a couple other people in the comments had picked up on. And pretty much God wrecks this guy's psychology of why he doesn't believe in stuff. He's like, okay, you've never really had to survive. Let's put you in a situation where you need to survive and see how long you stay like this. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So he gets reincarnated then, born as Tanya in 1913 in this new and different world that he says is reminiscent of a certain time period in Europe, which, of course, the same time period in Europe, except in this one, magic exists. And I really like the art and direction so far for this episode at this point, because the last episode was just a random-ass action fest, but that was a really good setup to a really interesting world and a very interesting, like, character arc for Tanya / whatever the salaryman's name is. I don't think we were even ever told in the show. So yeah, this was so far better. Like, this was so far better than episode 1 in just this short amount of time. So then Tanya actually is very good at magic, so she gets, or at least has a lot of magical potential. So she gets conscripted as a mage, and since she figures, okay, she's going to get conscripted when she comes of age anyway, she might as well just go now and receive some early training. So she goes into the army at she's currently 9 years old in the storyline from what we know, but we don't know how long ago it was that she actually went into the army, so she could have been 7 or something even. But yeah, basically the voice also for the voice for Tanya Degechaff reminds me of Mitsumine Mashiro, but with it's not the same voice actor, I don't believe, but it reminds me of Mitsumine Mashiro's voice from Mikakunen de Shinkoke, but with a really exaggerated accent. If I'm wrong and it is the same voice actress, then it's she's doing the same voice but with an exaggerated accent, but I actually really like it. Even in the first episode, I said that there were a lot of things I didn't like, but some of the things I did like were Tanya's character and the way it was handled, and the same with Victoria, or I've seen some people referring to her as Visha, so I think that may just be an abbreviation. So yeah, that was one thing I actually liked. Tanya's character design and voice acting, I actually feel like it's really quirky and creative, which for me is a good thing. I like really creative stuff, even if it is a bit weird at times. Then we see the guy Eric, who I described as the stereotypical sort of space mecha anime looking design dude, and he hears an explosion, and it's Tanya dealing out some punishment to some recruits, and that was actually a pretty cool scene, and it was kind of just to show that Tanya's she's written to be just this hard ass, only cares about the rules, but she kind of goes beyond the rules to the point of where you think there may be a little bit of sadism in there. And either way, then she goes out on this exercise or whatever, and the Entente Alliance attacks. Her call sign or whatever is Fairy 08, and we see she calls in the artillery shelling, which I thought was really cool. I like when they take sort of a serious military kind of look at some shows. But the artillery shelling, I liked as well the sound effects of it. It was really bassy, and it sounded, I don't want to say terribly realistic, but it sounded really good. Then the enemy mages jam her radio and attack, and I love the scene where she is ordered to stay and fight for 10 minutes, and you see the internal struggle with the character. It isn't completely voiced out, but you just see it in the reactions and stuff, where she's struggling with her fear of death until finally she just loses it and goes off on those soldiers. I love that. Still, something else I gotta point out. I said in episode 1, the little toy horse looking things the enemies were riding on looked super, super lame. Again, this episode, the little air skis that the enemies rode on looked super, super lame. They looked really goofy and lame. But the OST, though, when she's fighting them, the OST is incredible, and the fight looks... I don't even get why last episode was this massive, massive action fest, because honestly, like I said, a lot of the scenes didn't even look that great, but the fight scene here looked so good. It looked a million times better than last week's. Still lame air ski things, but it looked a lot better, and the soundtrack was so well paired with it. Also, I think it was funny at the end too how impressed everyone was with Tanya winning, where she was like, okay, this is good, I fall out, I'm injured, they'll send me home or whatever, I don't have to risk my life, and then they're just really impressed and plan to send her out to the front lines again. I thought it was very, very funny. And the after credit scene, I lost it. I was dying, where they make Tanya dress up and everything, and just the internal despair and embarrassment of being like that was so funny. So yeah, going over some thoughts on the episode overall, it was like a whole new show. It wasn't like last episode at all. It really felt like a really fun show to watch, and I don't get why I am so confused. I don't understand why this wasn't the first episode. I don't know what Nut is doing with this. Yeah, Nut is the name of the studio, I believe. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why this wasn't episode 1. Tanya's voice acting, I thought, when it was serious and slow, like when she was telling the story of her background and stuff, it was chillingly good. I thought, I don't know what it is, just when it's fast and high-pitched and whatever, it's just, oh, quirky little anime girl voice. But when, like, the voice actor slowed it down and was telling the story, you're talking very seriously to someone, I really thought it sounded really cool. I liked it. The animation and movement in animation looked so much better than last week. Last week looked sort of like kind of a crappy average anime, and this looked so much more fluid. It looked really good. So yeah, it also, one thing this kind of makes though is it kind of shows even more. Episode 1 was totally and completely pointless. This sets up all our story, this sets up our characters and stuff. Episode 1 does not help this episode, and it seems like it won't help episodes after this one, because the episodes after this one will be influenced by this one. So episode 1 seems very, very pointless, and very skippable. I feel like you could start at this episode and watch the rest of the show likely. Of course, we haven't seen the rest of the show, so we don't know, but I feel like when it ends, I'm going to be able to say, you can skip episode 1 and just start at episode 2. I feel like it will have nothing really heavy to bear on the story. So yeah, this did far more for the story, far more for the characters, and for the universe. This set up a really cool universe that we got shown in episode 1, but we're like, nothing was explained, nothing was set up, it was nothing. But this one really set up a really cool universe that I kind of like. I do think the air skis and the horse and stuff were lame, I already said that, but other than that, it's a cool universe. I like the setting. The OST and animation were, of course, not as impressive as Little Witch Academia, but still pretty great and nice in their own right compared to usual anime. This felt really quirky and creative. I've said it made the show feel quirky and creative, where the first episode, again, was just nothing. It was just whatever. This was still not a perfect episode, but it was very, very nice looking, and the story was actually pretty good, and like I keep saying, it should have been episode 1. But yeah, either way, I will give it 8.5 cycles of reincarnation out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Very, very, very good. But not perfect, of course, and not bad. I don't have any complaints, really. Any complaints other than this should have been episode 1, but I'm not going to hold that against the episode. Also, I read some stuff in the comments just to see what people were thinking about how episode 2 was done and stuff, and I saw a bunch of people actually saying, though, that they changed a ton of scenes and changed a ton of story and stuff from the source material. Well, maybe not a ton of story, but I heard they switched a lot of stuff around and made a lot of the scenes different. I didn't hear anybody saying it was necessarily bad, just that they deviated a lot from the source in this episode. But either way, I thought it was a great episode, and it was obvious they deviated a lot from the source last episode, since everybody was like, why did they skip the first 2 chapters or whatever. But yeah, either way, I thought this was good. 8.5 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did like it. Comment down there, tell me what you thought of this episode and what you thought of my thoughts on it. I feel like this is like the opposite of when I reviewed Taboo Tattoo in the first 2 episodes or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, this looks so good. And then pretty much every episode after that, I'm like, wow, this was shit. This was episode 1. I was like, guys, why am I watching this? This is shit. And then episode 2, I completely make the turnaround in the opposite direction where I'm like, oh crap, this was really creative. I like this. Yeah, I've made a bit of a turnaround. Who knows if the next episode will be good? Who knows if the show as a whole will be good? But this episode was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. Yeah, subscribe for more Youjo Senki. Gonna cover a lot of other anime this season. One Piece is one for sure. So was Demi-chan Wakaru Kobayashi-san no Chino Dragon Maid? Something? And last one. What was the other one? Little Witch Academia, of course. Duh. So yeah, I'm covering 5 shows this season, I believe. That's it. Follow on Twitter if you want. I'll try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel, and I'll see you all next time.